Hello and welcome, Azure enthusiasts. I'm thrilled to have you join us for this AZ-700 review questions session. Whether you are gearing up for the AZ-700 exam or simply looking to deepen your understanding of Azure, you are in the right place. In today's session, we'll be diving into a series of thoughtfully curated review questions that align with the AZ-700 exam objectives. These questions are designed to challenge your knowledge, reinforce key concepts, and prepare you for success in the world of Azure networking. Now I understand that you might be watching this video at your own pace, on your own schedule. That's the beauty of on-demand learning, you agree? Feel free to pause, rewind, and revisit any section that you find particularly intriguing or challenging. Whether you're a seasoned Azure professional or just starting your journey in the cloud, I encourage you to actively engage with the content. Consider this session as a virtual study partner here to guide you through the intricacies of AZ-700. First and foremost, who are we? We are 591 Lab and our site is 591lab.com, pronounced as 591 Lab. 591 Lab is the top IT training and certification exam brand in China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore. Our mission at 591 Lab is to provide our clients with exceptional exam preparation experience for certifications in Cisco, Huawei, Aruba, Juniper, Microsoft, and Azure certification tracks. So without further ado, let's jump into the world of AZ-700 and explore the ins and outs of Azure networking administration. Are you ready? Let's get started with the agenda. The agenda for the review questions today will revolve around the following. 1. Design and implement hybrid networking. 2. Azure virtual networks. 3. Load balancing HTTP traffic in Azure. 3. Load balance HTTPS traffic in Azure. So, let's get to our first question. You plan to configure BGP for site-to-site VPN connection between a data center and Azure. Which two Azure resources should you configure? Each correct answer presents part of the solution. So before we provide the correct answer here, one is let's go to the Microsoft whiteboard and have a drawing of what is being presented in this question. So this is your data center. This is data center on the on-premises, and then we have on the Azure bit, on the Azure side, we have the virtual network. So connecting the network, so this is the network of the data center side. Connecting these two networks, you'll configure using site-to-site. On the Azure side, you need to configure virtual network gateway. For that virtual network gateway, the virtual network gateway and local network gateway. So I'll go to the Microsoft portal shortly and show you how virtual network gateway and the local network gateway are created. So after you've created the virtual network gateway, you'll have the IP, the public IP of the virtual network gateway and the security key. So the public IP and the public IP and the security key, that is what you'll implement on the firewall side, firewall sitting on the data center side. Now on Azure side, after you've had this virtual network gateway, you will implement the local network gateway. On the local network gateway, you'll have the public IP of the firewall that is sitting on the on-premises, and then you'll have IP address range. This IP address range, this is the private IP address range on the on-premises, the data center side. That one you'll place on the local network gateway. and then you connect these two, virtual network gateway and the local network gateway, you get that connection established. So let me go to the Azure portal, then show you. So I'll go to, first of all, to virtual network gateway. I'd created a virtual network gateway called 591 Lab. So if you go to that virtual network gateway, you'll see all the configurations here. So the gateway type is VPN. So for me to create that connection I was talking about, I'll go to connections. If I say add connection, I'll choose my source group that is there, and then say site-to-site VPN, give it a name, remote connection, go settings, and then here virtual network gateway. You can see here what is needed here. Virtual network gateway is needed. I choose my virtual network gateway, and local network gateway that I'd already created is here. I key that in, and then I do a pre-shared key that I was talking about. So I give it a key, and then I'll go ahead and review and create. So these are the components that are required to set up a site-to-site VPN, local network gateway, and virtual network gateway. So if you go back to our question, to answer the question, which two Azure resources should you configure? It's a virtual network gateway and a local network gateway. Second question, you have an Azure subscription that contains a virtual network. You plan to deploy an Azure VPN gateway and 90 site-to-site VPN connection. The solution must meet the following requirements. Ensure that the site-to-site VPN connections remain available if an Azure data center fails to or minimizes it. Ensure that the solution also minimizes the cost. So in this regard, first and foremost, if we are going to create a VPN gateway, I'll go to my portal, Azure portal. So let's say you're creating a new Azure virtual gateway. So whenever you're creating an Azure virtual gateway, you will choose the SKUs. So let me say here, let me just name it that. So you see another SKU. This tells you if the SKU that you get to choose here will get to determine the number of tunnels or the number of connections, site-to-site connections that can be supported. So basic SKU, if we revert back to our question, basic SKU usually support maximum of 10 site-to-site connection. SKU 1 and 2, this is here, 1 and 2, this one, 1 and 2 and 3 per se. 1 and 2 and 3 usually support maximum 30 site-to-site connections. 4 and 5 usually support maximum of 100, but here you've been told 90. It needs to support 90. So that means we've already outruled A and B, because these 1 and 2 support 30. So 4 and 5 are the ones that are supporting 100 plus. So, and between 4 and 5, which one minimizes the cost? It is VPN Gateway 4. This is the one that is going to minimize the cost for the end customer. Next question. You plan to deploy Azure Virtual Network. You need to design the subnets. Which 3 types of resources require dedicated subnets? So whenever you are deploying a virtual network, there are certain resources that do require their own subnets. So if the kind of if I go to a virtual network, go to my Azure portal. So I go to virtual networks. On the virtual network, so I choose my 5.1 lab, and then I go to subnet section. From this, you'll see that I have different subnets here. So I have subnet 1 that is containing my VM. I have my gateway subnet, which is only for the gateway, for the virtual network gateway. I have my application network gateway subnet, which only contains the Azure application gateway subnets. if I was also to provision Azure Bastion, this here, it will also need its own subnet called Bastion subnet. So this is the reason why when we go back to the question itself, we'll have Azure Bastion, the answers to be Azure Bastion, Azure Application Gateway, and then the VPN Gateway. These are the three resources that require their own subnets, dedicated subnets within the Azure Virtual Network. Question 4. You are planning the IP addressing for the subnets in Azure Virtual Networks. Which type of resource requires IP addresses in the subnets? So, to answer this question, we'll go with, let's start with the internal load balancer. An internal load balancer gets to balance the traffic that is inside the Azure network. So, meaning that this internal balancer has been assigned within a particular subnet and a private IP address range. So that means this internal load balancer will be assigned an IP, a static IP, private IP, so that it can load balance the traffic that is inside the virtual network. So when you do storage account, no, storage account doesn't require an IP. This needs a public IP, or you can choose to use the private lakes. Azure Virtual Network Net, this one is automatically ruled out. It requires a sort of a public IP. Service endpoint policies. Service endpoint policies, these are policies that to ensure that you access certain services in a secure manner, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need IP for IP addressing for static IPs for those particular addresses. So in this question, the answer here is internal load balancer. It is the only resource that will require IP addresses in the subnets. So to demonstrate for you that, I'll go to my whiteboard, and then on my whiteboard I'll show you how the load balancer works. So you have your on-premises, the traffic is coming from the outside, and then this is your Azure side. This is Azure. So you have your front end. So you usually have load balancer. This the public load balancer. This is public load balancer. And then this public load balancer, when traffic gets here, you have now your VMs here. So these VMs are like the front end VMs application, and then you have other VMs here. These other VMs are on the back end. Let's say backend VMs, backend. So to distribute traffic for the front end, for the front end virtual machines, you use a public load balancer, which will load balance the traffic to these. But also to load balance the traffic inside, while you are inside for the backend VMs, you'll have an internal load balancer. So this is called an internal load balancer. So this internal load balancer will get the traffic from either of the VMs like that, and then it gets to distribute it to either of these endpoint virtual machines. So let's proceed to the next question. You have an Azure application gateway named Azure Gateway 1 that has a routing rule named Rule 1. Rule 1 directs traffic for HTTP www.contoso.com to a backend pool named Pool 1. Pool 1 targets an Azure virtual machine scale set named VMSS1. You deploy another virtual machine scale set named VMSS2. You need to configure Azure Gateway 1, direct all traffic, application gateway 1 to direct all traffic for HTTP www.aditum.com to VMSS2. The solution must ensure that the request to HTTP www.contoso.com continue to be directed to pool 1. Which three actions should you perform? So first, before we go to the exact answer here, we'll go to the Microsoft whiteboard and then explain what is required. So whenever you are creating Azure Application Gateway, we have Azure Application Gateway. So the Azure Application Gateway it load balances the traffic that is coming in to the backend servers or your applications. So this is the application gateway, and then on the backend side, you have your virtual machines. So when the traffic comes, so this Azure Application Gateway has got a public IP. So when traffic hits this Azure Application Gateway, it distributes that traffic to the backend servers. So on this application gateway, you usually configure the listeners, what we call listeners, to listen on the traffic. You configure rules. So let me take you to the Azure portal. So on the Azure portal, I'll go to my created application gateway. So my application gateway is here. My application gateway is here. So when I go, application gateway should be Azure Application Gateway. So when I go to my application gateway, then you'll see on this application gateway what I'll need to configure are: one, my backend pools. I need to configure my backend pools, very important. And then I'll need to configure my listeners. My listener, which port is the traffic listening on, and then I'll configure my rules. Rules what determine how the traffic is being relayed to the backend servers. So to answer the question, which three actions should you perform? So on this, in order to configure the traffic that is flowing to the backend servers for this application, you need to configure, as you've seen, add a backend pool. You need to add a listener and add a rule. So those are the correct answer. A, add a backend pool. D, add a listener, and E, add a rule. Next question. You have an Azure subscription that contains an Azure App Service app. The app uses a URL of https www.contoso.com. You need to use a custom domain on Azure Front Door for www.contoso.com. The custom domain must use a certificate from allowed certification authority. So to implement certificates for applications, so I'll go to the Azure portal. So to implement certificates, usually go to a service called Azure Key Vault. So on the Key Vault, this is where you'll have all the keys stored for your services. Whenever we want to load any sort of key for your application, you have to store that particular key or certificate on this particular Key Vault. So that is the reason why it is very important that whenever you want to store certificates within your application, don't address those certificates within the application themselves, but load those certificates within the Azure Key Vault. So within the Azure Key Vault, your certificates will be much secure, and you'll be able to load those particular certificates from the Key Vault and reference them here. So to answer this question, what should you include in the solution when you want to use your certificates? You have to go to the Azure Key Vault. I want to thank you all for listening. Thank you all for attending today's class at 591 Lab. We hope you found the material informative and helpful. Remember, practice is critical to mastering any new skill. So review the course content and keep practicing with 591 Lab help and support. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us. We appreciate your participation and look forward to seeing you in our future classes. Have a great day.